Hey everybody, Luke back again here with a retrospective of one of the most important first-person shooter games people really don't talk about. And that was Delta Force Black Hawk Down, and more importantly, the whole Delta Force series from Nova Logic. This series of first-person shooter games predates Battlefield, predates Call of Duty, predates Medal of Honor as one of the original massive online multiplayer first-person shooter games for the PC that would eventually make its way to the Xbox and PlayStation consoles also. Now, we're going to be focusing on one of the later entries from 2003, the Delta Force Black Hawk Down. This was probably the high point of the series, and from there it kind of went downhill. So we're going to take a look at what happened, why was this game so great, and what happened afterwards that caused the whole series to go downhill. Now, if you're new here, before we get into it, do me a big favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. It really does help us because it lets YouTube know you enjoy what we do here, and hopefully we can help you learn something new, maybe about a game you didn't know about. Alright, Delta Force Black Hawk Down was the 5th or 6th game, depending on how you judge the number of games in the Delta Force series. A very popular series of video games that launched originally back in 1998. Where Delta Force Black Hawk Down launched in 2003. It was based on, very loosely, the movie and the book by the same name, but it's a very different game. It doesn't just focus on the actions from the movie and the book, but focus on the whole conflict in the Somali Civil War, and which I hope I pronounced that right. And it brings people both into a first-person multiplayer game and a campaign mode where you can play it and enjoy it. Now, the game lets you play as either the 10th Mountain Division or the Special Forces Group Delta Force as you help with humanitarian missions in a single-player game, or go head-to-head with other armed forces in a variety of multiplayer modes, including Team Deathmatch, Free-for-all, King of the Hill, Attack and Defend, my personal favorite, where one team defends a set of objects, the other team tries to attack them and destroy them, and then you flip, Capture the Flag, Co-op, Search and Destroy, and so many more. Many of the game modes which you see Delta Force pioneer are actually game modes you will now recognize actively being played in games like Call of Duty. And while somebody else may have invented them, Delta Force was one of the very first games to kind of pioneer some of these game modes, some of these multiplayer features, and more. Now, multiplayer was really what made this game popular. The single-player missions were okay to good, but they weren't great. Multiplayer, though, had a few killer features. For one, massive large maps for the time. They make today's maps in games like Call of Duty feel minuscule. Miles and miles of square miles, you could walk around, explore. You weren't really limited to one area. You could explore the whole map and go from there. There was also a very good map maker that allowed for private servers to go out there and be able to create very interesting, fun game maps, which kept the game running to this very day. Also, Nova Logic ran a set of official rank servers where you could rank up, earn prestige points and more to kind of brag that you were a better gamer than others. And that this predated the idea that you had to rank up in order to unlock weapons, but you were able to brag about how much of a good player you are compared to other people of a lower rank, with public rank servers and public scoreboards to see who was the best gamer in the whole world or in your country, etc. The multiplayer map making really stood this game out from a lot of its similar competitors at the time, where you just had the maps that came with the game, and honestly that's kind of become the standard. The idea of being able to create your own maps for most of the most popular games just aren't there. You're kind of stuck in what's offered, where Nova Logic had a very easy to use drop and drag type map maker that allowed you to make very interesting not only multiplayer maps, but cooperative missions to play with your fellow gamers and get a team together and go through a mission. To this day, people are still making maps for the game. A quick browse of novahq.net, a website where it hosts these maps for download, found hundreds of maps being made over the last couple years, and many of them made just here in 2020, 17 years after the game was first released. There's still a very active group of players, you can still go on at almost any time of the day and find hundreds of players in one of the 3 different types of servers that host the game. Now, the NovaLogic official server to go through there is still available, but several other companies have launched servers, so if NovaLogic would ever stop supporting the game, you could still access it. So what made Delta Force Black Hawk Down so special? Well, it really was the idea that it set the standard for many of the features you expect, especially in multiplayer game mode. Originally, the games were more tactical based, and they were much more focused on the idea of just running as a squad to complete missions. Delta Force Black Hawk Down moved it into more of a action-paced, fast-paced first-person shooter game with an excellent soundtrack for the time and graphics. Now, by today's standard in late 2020, these graphics aren't exactly something special. But games like Battlefield that came out in 2002, Medal of Honor in 1999, and Call of Duty, which didn't come out until several months after Delta Force Black Hawk Down came out, all clearly noticed what Delta Force had done, the community it had built, and early versions of the game were even used by the US military in training for a very early rough training of the simulators that we now see for military training. Now, Delta Force Black Hawk Down's graphics and sound isn't great now, but at the time it was groundbreaking, high quality, realistic. At a time where a lot of first-person shooters were still kind of cartoonish or science fiction-y, Delta Force went in and said, hey, we're going to make a very realistic military simulator to the best of our ability at this time, even if it doesn't quite live up to realism. For example, in Delta Force Black Hawk Down, they still didn't have bullet drop. Bullets kind of continued on until they hit something in a straight line, which made sniping and other things very easy. NovaLogic also continued to support the game for many years after release, and it also supported the ability for patches for both cheats to keep cheats out and bugs. This really helped Delta Force Black Hawk Down to maintain its community long after release. Though NovaLogic was finding itself in an increasingly tough spot in 2005 and later, as other games like Battlefield and Call of Duty and Medal of Honor continue to grow faster with a bigger group of fans. To counter this, NovaLogic decided to go after the Battlefield realm with controllable vehicles and larger maps, and launched Typhoon Rising, a successor to the Delta Force series, but without the Delta Force real branding on it. It was a little bit of a different game. It did have a large following, but was never as successful as the Delta Force series. NovaLogic later tried to go back to the Delta Force series with 2 Delta Force Extreme games, which were not very successful. They were based on the old engine with minor improvements, and honestly seemed like an attempt for a quick cash grab to try to make some additional money as they worked on their secret project, Delta Force Angel Falls. Originally announced for a 2008 release, it kept getting pushed back, and after the big initial announcement with some leaked demo footage, nothing really ever came from it. While the project was never officially canceled, it withered away and never became a reality. NovaLogic was later selling off all their games and properties to another company, and Delta Force Angel Falls fell away. Sadly, this was the high point for the NovaLogic series, as companies like Activision and the Battlefield series and more outpaced them and replaced them in the world of first-person gaming. But without the success of the Delta Force franchise, without many of the improvements they brought into gaming, the idea that first-person shooters can be extremely realistic and fun at the same time, it's very likely we would not have seen some of the other games come out in the way they did. Some of the game modes you may now enjoy in games like Call of Duty and Battlefield may look very different if it wasn't for some of the pioneering work done back in 1998 through 2003 on the Delta Force series that set these game modes up, set the expectation of gamers of what could be done in large online first-person shooters like 50-person head-to-head video game matches in multiplayer on the Xbox and on the PC. So there you go, one of the most special games in my history, and actually the clan I joined back in 2003 in this game is still the same first-person shooter clan I play with today in 2020. We're still around, still going strong. So that's a quick history of the Delta Force Black Hawk Down game from Nova Logic. Sadly, this is probably one of the game franchises we'll never hear from again. Though it would be interesting to see a revival of it. But for now, just be happy that you get to still play it. That's still available. It is available for purchase on the Steam and GOG.com store. I would personally recommend going to Good Old Games, GOG.com, and getting their version. Both work, but I did find the GOG.com version to be a lot more stable and run better on my Windows system from 2020. So keep that in mind. But it doesn't matter where you get it. It's a fun game, and it's worth checking out if you're looking for a little nostalgic early 2000s classic first-person shooter gaming. Hopefully other games bring back the ability to play multiplayer maps that are created by the users in an easy way. But unfortunately, with the type of graphics and settings, creating these type of environments are a lot more complicated today than they were back in 2003, which makes map making more difficult. But successful franchises like Mario Maker, which allows you to create Mario levels, may bring back the idea of also allowing people to create first-person shooter maps. One can hope. If you like this video, do me a big favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. We will really appreciate it. Helps us out a lot, and hopefully you enjoy this game.